Okay, ready?
Yes.
Welcome to the Photofocus Q&A Show. It's May 26th, 2022. My name is Ron Pepper, and I'm here this episode with Pamela Berry. How's it going,
Hey,
Pam?
it's good. It's good. What a gorgeous day out today, honestly. It's been really, really nice to get out and about today.
Over there in near Salt Lake City, Utah,
Yes,
yeah?
yes, definitely.
And I'm coming at you from the same time zone. I'm in Northern California. One of the first shows that I've done that I didn't have to work in someone from Australia or something like that. So this is kind of nice. Just the two of us. Good to see you.
You as well. This is great.
Well, why don't you tell us about our sponsor before we answer a few questions? It looks like we have 5 of them today. So
Yeah,
let's hear about Tamron a little bit, and then we'll do that.
yeah. I think I have. Actually, I have one of the original versions of this lens that they're sponsoring with. So the Q&A show is sponsored by Tamron, and so check out that new 28 to 75 millimeter G2 lens. It's for Sony E-mount cameras. And they are going to, feature improved close-up performance, faster autofocus speed. It's actually a whole new lens design. I'm looking forward to playing with this one. This lens gives better image quality, and yet you're still retaining that compact, lightweight design, and it's got, user customizable functions thanks to that Tamron lens utility. So yeah, check it out more at tamron-usa.com. I feel fortunate. I look forward to playing with this here soon.
Hey, Pamela, that's the Q&A show. So the first question comes from me. As a non, I don't use Sony. I'd like to, but I haven't yet. Which one is the Sony E-mount? Is that a full frame or a crop sensor?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't use actually Sony either. I'm poly camera, so I use them when I need to. But
That's my word.
No, I use them. I'm good friends with the guys over at Sony, so they'll send me some information. But now I have to Google that because I feel dumb actually not knowing that.
Sorry, I thought you would know that one, and I thought I was the one that was not up to speed. I mean, I'm poly cameras as well, but Sony, Olympus. And I like to joke around that I like to say, don't tell anyone that sometimes I just go out with my iPhone.
Oh yeah, you know what? The best camera you have is the best camera. The best camera at the time is what you have on you.
Yeah, and those are getting better and better all the time.
Absolutely. It is. See, it's not full frame. It is the mirrorless, but not full frame, it looks like.
Okay, cool.
I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, I want to see the hate emails in the comments.
Well, that's right. Either in the comments or, that's a good segue, if you want to get your question on the show, go to photofocus.com/questions, or you can even just email questions@photofocus.com. Just remember questions and photofocus and put them together, and your question will get to us. And I'd like to ask people to reread the question before you send it, because sometimes I have to figure out what you're trying to say. And some of them don't get on when that happens, even though we have one today that may not have made it, but I felt like it was fun enough to talk about that we're going to interpret the question how we do, and we're going to answer it how we interpret it. So, all right. So the first question, let's stop beating around the bush here, is from Ann Forbes in Australia. I knew Australia would come into play somewhere and every show. So that's good. Ann says, straight horizons, and that's with question mark. This is easy enough when the horizon is water, but what should I do when the horizon is land that slopes very slightly, maybe only a degree or two from one side of the frame to the other? She says, I've tried to tried fixing on a vertical instead by looking for a straight tree. Any other suggestions? Well, I think looking for a vertical is a really good idea, although trees are oftentimes not vertical. But if you can find a clear vertical, that's a really good idea. I've got a handful of ideas. Do you want to go first, Pam, and I'll see if I can fill in.
It's a great question, because one of the first things we learn in Photo 101 is straighten out the horizons. That's one of the first mistakes we do as we learn as photography. As someone who enjoys landscapes and lives in the mountains, I feel this frustration because sometimes I look at my pictures and I'm like, oh, but it doesn't look, you know what? That's where the artist comes into play. You know, yes, use the plants, use the treetops, use the horizon. And even on the mountain range, you can kind of still tell where that level is. But also at the end of the day, if your tripod has the leveler on that, that helps tremendously. My tripod has that, and I utilize that all the time.
Yes. Well, I want to reiterate that too. That was one of those rules that you isn't always obvious, but sometimes you'll have a fantastic shot. Let's just say it's the landscape, and maybe the horizon is off just a little bit. It's not even that noticeable, but our subconscious kind of notices it, and then we don't love the photo as much. And that's one of those first things you learn. But so it's important. But I agree. The bubble level, you can even get the one, like I've got one that goes on the hot shoe, but I do stuff that I really need the leveling, like real estate, where you really need things to be very, very straight. There's also, I think most cameras at this point have a level on the screen, right? That you can hit. Mine, I hit the info button twice and it comes up with a virtual level, I guess you'd call it.
Yeah,
so you've got
that. That's a great, I actually don't use mine very much, but I forgot I do have that on mine too.
I really don't like it. It just doesn't, I don't really like using it. I only use it in kind of a emergency so to speak, but it is there if you need it. And I just want to also add that I really am bad. If I'm hand holding my camera, I'm so bad at getting the horizon right. And I've just known that. I've just joke around with it myself about it. So one thing you can do too is you can put the grids on the screen, either the viewfinder, whether it's, whatever kind of viewfinder or screen you're using when you're shooting. That can help you gauge the verticals better, or maybe even the horizontals, although not in her example. And then of course, you can always fix it in post, right?
How many times have we fixed it in post?
That's the thing. Like there's all of that, like a lot of people, you want to get it right in camera. And I think it's best to get it right in camera, but I don't always get it right in camera. And you can always tweak it just a little bit. And
you did that in film days too. When you were in the dark room, you would adjust it as you needed. It's not any different than doing it on your computer. It's the same way. We've done this as photographers for decades.
Yeah. Dodging and burning. Heck yeah.
Yep.
Well, so for a horizon, then would you just, when you're printing and it's shining on your photo paper, you just adjust the paper a little bit? Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. It's been so long. I probably did that, but what is it, like 30 years at this point, I think?
Actually, when I went back to college in 2008, I actually took film classes, and we were doing that. Well, I guess that was a long time ago. Oh, never mind.
that's still pretty long, but there are some dark rooms around that one can go and rent, or at least around here in the Bay Area. So that I've been kind of having that on my mind for a while as a fun thing to do.
Yeah, same here in Utah. There's a couple of places you can go in and do darkroom stuff. I still have film rolls in my freezer.
How far are you from Levi's school job?
About an hour and a half. Actually, my daughter goes to school up there where Levi's
really?
at. Yep,
Oh, no
so
kidding.
I go there often. Yeah,
cool.
I've actually helped him on a couple of things here and there.
Nice. Oh man, I got to go up and see that whole area. Let's move on to, the name is here. It looks like Bran Pajovic in Canada. I'm not sure how to pronounce that in Canadian, but so it says, he says, when I transfer, this is the question that we're going to make our own.
Okay.
He says, when I transfer an image from Photoshop to Neo, no problem. But after I transfer it back, it doesn't work. I start with a raw file. Should I use a smaller file? Okay, Bran. This is an audio show. I'm smiling when I say this. It doesn't make that much sense. But I think I understand the idea. When you're working in Photoshop, you go do something specific in an outside application, like an application that has a specific use, and then you bring it back into Photoshop. Mm-hmm. I do that kind of thing, not really from Photoshop, more like for me, it's from Lightroom, usually.
Or
so that you
another
can,
plug-in type. Yeah.
yeah. And that usually is a round trip by plug-in typically, or to Photoshop and back. So, okay, well, here's what I thought of anyway. If you're going, if you're having any problem going between applications, the main thing you can do is when you want to take control of it and do something deliberately so that you can do that, save it as a 16-bit TIFF file in your app and open it in the other app, because that file is going to contain all the information, probably too much, and it's going to be standard so that it will definitely open up in Photoshop the way that it's supposed to. So that's my main thing. Like if all else fails, save it as a 16-bit TIFF and then close out of Neo. I don't use it, but then open it and you should be just fine that way.
Now, I know some of these programs, you can set those settings to do that as well.
Yeah.
So I'd have to look in the settings to see if you need to go make sure that when you're working in there, it saves it as a certain thing. So when you go back to Photoshop, so you may just need to go check your settings in the application.
Actually, now that I think about it, he says I start with a raw file. That could be the key, is if Neo is a raw processor built in and he makes changes to the raw file and then opens the raw file in Photoshop, then that won't matter. Like it'll still be a raw file out of the camera, and the changes you made in one won't go to the other.
Yeah.
Because like Photoshop uses Adobe Camera Raw, which is an actual application. Even though you don't really see it, it's still a separate application, and that's a raw processor, which is raw processing is a big deal. It has a lot of things built into that. So if you do changes in Lightroom, Photoshop, DxO, what else? We get Capture One. You do raw changes, you need to convert it from raw, preferably to TIFF would be best. Then all of the changes you've made in raw will be applied and baked into that. So that could be what he's asking, is that his raw changes don't come up in Photoshop after this Neo.
Yep, I think we figured it out.
Okay. See, just talking about things always is the solution to figuring it out. Always. I felt like I had one more thing to say about that. I guess what I would say is, again, I don't know Neo, but typically Photoshop has the #1 good, arguably, okay, he's one of the best raw processing engines or whatever. At least there. Okay, now I'm going to get in trouble. Photoshop, Capture One, DxO. Those are probably the best raw processors. Do you have any others? I'm not sure.
I think you covered it. Yeah.
Okay. I haven't used it. I know On One has one, but I don't really know enough to say. But anyway,
I would say Photoshop and what you've said is stronger, in my opinion. I don't want to get in trouble.
Yeah. I mean, we just use, Pam, you and I use what we use, and I don't have a lot to say about those. But might recommend doing your raw work in Photoshop, and then whatever else you need to do would be in the other apps. So, all right. I hope that helps, Bran. I hope that was the question. Okay. Oh, this is a good one. Rob and Regina. Who could that possibly be? I think we know who that is. He says, so sometimes you don't want to take a job. So you give them a ridiculous price, like many times over the amount you would normally charge. And then they accept. What do you do when you don't want to take the job? How can you turn them down? So I don't know. It's a good problem to have, man.
It is, and I've been guilty of this. I have given a ridiculous price to a very popular company because I was like, oh, I don't, like it was around Christmas time. I was busy, and I was like, I'll just throw them this price. And then at the same time, I was bidding for a very major shipping company, and honestly, they like balked at the price, even though it was like, actually, I kind of underbid because I wanted to do this cover photo. And they were like, I can't believe it's so expensive. And I ended up not getting the job, but I got the other job that I like overly outbid. And I was like, what is going on in this world? Sometimes you never know what's going to happen. For me, though, I did end up taking the big money job because it was a good Christmas. Yeah.
Was it because it was a company you didn't really like, or kind of a work that you didn't really want to do, or what was the reason?
that. It was just, I wanted to spend some time with family. So I just kind of threw this number out. But when they actually accepted it, I was like, I kind of actually need that.
Yeah, that makes it worth it. Sure. Yeah. I mean, we work for ourselves. There's nothing wrong with that. You know?
But if you don't want to take the job, I mean, they're used to people saying, you know what, sorry, I ended up having another engagement come through, you know, something similar like that. It's really the more polite, or even you say, look, I realize I'm not able to take the job. May I refer you to somebody else?
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a nice tactful way to do it. Yeah.
I've done that many times, actually. I've always referred, if I can't do it, or if I can't, you know, if my schedule doesn't work out, I always offer to refer some people to them to make their looking for somebody a lot easier.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
They appreciate it. And actually, I had that happen where I referred somebody, and the next year they came back and asked me again because they were so appreciative of me referring.
Yeah. And you'll be surprised that good things come from no matter how you as long as you handle it tactfully and professionally, good things will come even if you say no to these things. And I'm joking around a little bit here, Rob, but I know he's serious. I know it's a real question, actually. And hey, I can think of really one time that I did this, and also they said yes, and I said, well, then I guess I'm getting on a plane and buying some gear and, you know, all this stuff. And so what I would say is, don't, if you're going to bid high, when you do that with the intention of, if they accept, that you still accept. Like, I wouldn't bid high just so they're going to say no. I would rather say that something, again, that I'm sorry, I'm booked. I've got these other things. I'm just unable to do that now. Can I find someone, help you find someone I can refer? I have a few ideas for someone who'd be really good at this. Or beyond, if it's true, I always like to make sure I say things that are true, because otherwise you can't remember all the things you say, right? But if it's true, you could say, I don't think I'm the right one for the job, but I can help.
Nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I did pitch a couple times where they didn't end up panning out. I said, can I refer you to someone? And I would love to be the assistant. Like, I would love to learn from that and help out with this. I've done it the other way, where someone landed a job that was too much for them in my specialty, where he then became the assistant, and it was really my thing. So it's gone both ways. And I don't have, my ego and pride is fine. Like, if I'm not an expert in something, I'm not, and I would love to go learn it. I'll be your assistant. If I'm an expert in it, I'm happy to say that too. So, yep. Just, I think do bid what you would want if they say yes.
Yeah.
It's a good problem to have, because most people are rushing to the bottom as far as price goes. So keep bidding high. Let's go on. Where are we at here? Mike in San Francisco. Oh, San Francisco. Let me just look out the window here. Oh, I can't quite see it from here anymore. He used to live there. He says, what do I do if what do I need if I will be trying to do a macro of a penny, trying to blow it up to 1 foot by 1 foot, or even 2 feet by 2 feet? Oh, want to go first?
I'm still mapping this out in my head.
Well, my question is, okay, first of all, you need a macro lens or something capable, because, oh, sorry, let me back up one. I think from as far as camera bodies, anything will do. Yeah. Because anything is going to blow up to several feet by several feet just fine. Or a few feet.
And you can always crop and post.
Well, there's a certain amount of, you're just talking about straight up resolution now. So there's only so much you can do. Even though there are apps that claim to be able to blow it up a lot, I have not done enough testing to be able to say I believe that yet.
And the few testing I've done, there's still a lot of artifacting.
Yeah, that was like some app saying they could fix your out of focus shots. I'm like, that's going too far. Yeah.
A good macro lens. I mean, obviously, we don't know what kind of camera or what equipment he's using, but the macro lenses that have come out in the last year or so are absolutely phenomenal. And it's been just a joy to play with some of them.
That's on my list. Tamron, is to do some macro playing around.
I love macro. Honestly, I even for the longest time I had the macro adapt for my phone.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
love doing that on walks or hikes. It's just, there's something about macro photography that to me speaks to my soul. So when you're doing something at the penny, which could be interesting depending on how you shoot it, but if you're trying to blow it up for a 1x1 or a 2x2, just have a great lens at the end of the day, and it's going to look spectacular.
In fact, with most cameras, so with macro, we should mention with the macro, the idea would be to pretty much fill the frame with that penny.
Yeah.
And most lenses just can't focus that close. So a macro lens is what we're talking about there. So you can pretty much use your whole sensor, your whole frame on just the penny or just the small item. So if you're only blowing up to 1x1, you might even be able to use a high resolution camera with a regular lens. That might be enough.
It may be, but you definitely need to be on a tripod. You cannot, this is one of those where I don't care how steady your hand is. When you're doing macro such as this, get on a tripod, especially if you don't have a macro lens, because you're going to be a little farther back and there's a lot more issues. If you want a good macro like this, be on a tripod, use a macro lens, and it's going to look great. But if you don't, you're going to be farther back. You're going to have to zoom in, and you need to be on that tripod to make it look as great as you want it to look.
The thing I was going to bring up for this is focus. Yeah. Because depending on how do you say this? How are you posing the penny?
Is it side or on top? Or...
Yeah. If you're looking straight down on it, like you just walked up on the sidewalk and you're looking down on it, okay, then you probably your focus should be fine. But if it's looking at it from one edge closer, one edge farther away, you might need focus stacking.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah. If
you're using a macro lens really close, then depending, it might be needed. And that's a whole topic on its own, but, what's the focus stacking app called again? I used to know this off the top of my head.
I've never played with it. Actually, speaking of Levi up in Logan, Utah, he's been a big fan of focus stacking.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's something I haven't really done. Helicon Focus with an H, Helicon Focus, I believe is what you go to .com, and they're the known focus stacking, but I think Photoshop has it built in. And so the idea is you take several shots at varying focus planes, and then the software puts it together. And that's a whole technique on its own, but that can be really useful for still life macros. I wanted to throw in there that, the new iPhones have a pretty good macro ability that I didn't even know about. I'm on a couple of versions old now, but they're it'll focus on close up really well.
But it's still not quite like a good macro lens.
Oh, I know. It's always a secondary, second best. I mean, I love the portrait mode, but I know it's fake. I know it's using multiple lenses and all that, but what can I say?
No, I can't wait for I actually have it saved in my Amazon cart right now. Some new macro clips for my phone for the new summer season.
Did you ever have that little tiny one? It basically looks like a rubber band that goes around your phone and has just a small plastic that goes over the single lens phone.
Yep, I did.
And that was so much fun to play with. And it's just a toy. I'm not trying to say it's anything special. It's about a $2 toy.
I actually have some of my iPhone macro pictures on my website because it is a lot of fun.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, those can revive your interest in shooting if you're in a lull, just to do something like that. And then you're going to want to go buy a nice macro lens, I suppose. But.
Oh man, I honestly, some of those, and some of those macro lenses too are so good in portraits as well.
They are?
Yeah. Yep. If you get a really great, 95 millimeter macro lens, I absolutely use it in my portrait work.
Yeah, because you don't have to take things up close necessarily.
Yeah, exactly.
Close, yeah.
Yeah, it still gives me, that compressed definition in a face, which is very, appealing. So yeah, they make some really great macro lenses make, really nice portrait lenses.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I don't currently have a true macro lens. I don't even know why. but that's one of the things on my list I'll play with.
Well, and if you're going to do weddings, if you want to do weddings, you need to invest in a really great macro lens.
No, thank you. No, thank you. I'm very happy when someone says, "Do you shoot weddings?" No. Remember in Friends a long time ago? They're like, what was it? What was the question? Does this make me look fat or something?
Oh.
And it was like, does this make me look fat? No. It was just automatic. It's, do you shoot weddings? No.
No.
For other things like pennies, I guess. Oh.
Actually a little funny story. I gaffed the Canon commercial for their macro lens that they came out last year. So I was the gaffer for that. So I got to actually light for doing all these macro shots, which is really awesome.
What was it for? I missed what you said.
It was Canon came out with a macro lens last year.
Oh, cool.
That they announced. So I was a filmmaker for their commercial promoting it. So
for the longest time, I thought Gaffer Tape I thought it was pronounced Gaffa Tape.
Gaffer.
Yeah, because whoever it was that introduced me to it, a photographer just ages back then, I can't remember even who it was, but had an accent. They called it Gaffa Tape.
Oh, that's funny.
For the longest time. And so with my regular West Coast accent, I'd be like, go in the store. I just need Gaffa Tape.
Gaffer tape is great to have in your photography bag, by the way. It has come so useful on anything I've shot. Like it's
one of the main,
yeah.
That's one of the main things. I've got 2 rolls of it around here and here's a tip. Make a little mini roll. Like we're on audio only here, so I can't really show it, but you take some off your roll and roll it up small. So it's kind of like, I don't know, cigarette shaped or something. And then just keep it. I just have little tiny rolls in all different photo bag pockets all over the place. And so even when it's not photography related, you find reasons for that Gaffa Tape all the time.
And if you're a wedding photographer, you'll be surprised how much you'll use gaffer's tape.
and interiors. I was holding up blinds with it the other day, and yeah, absolutely.
I've used it on portraits to hold clothing and it's
jewelry.
Yeah, it is it's such a versatile thing to have in your toolbox.
And just to be clear, that is a Gaffer, right?
Yes, you can find it at all your camera stores. I actually stock up. So there's a broadcasting conference every year in April called NAB, National Association of Broadcasters. Then there's like companies that come in there and you just get them super cheap, and it's usually my stock for the year.
Can I call you Gaffala? No, that's not very good.
Another little tip, Black Friday is the best day to get your SD cards.
Really?
Yeah.
Just everyone's they're just running specials?
Yep. The Black Friday is when I stock up for my memory cards for the year.
My strategy for memory cards has been just, since they're relatively cheap now, I just kind of buy them when I need them, and I have them either same day or next day on Amazon.
I know. Yeah. This is my penny picture days, I think.
Yeah. Well, I went through a lot of those for sure. And, but I like now since I'm pretty geared up with what I needed, but yeah, if you need a new hard drive, cause you fill up,
yep. Black Friday.
I'll just shoot over to Costco and grab one. It's fine. They're just,
well, that's actually good. Speaking of Costco, well, no, we were talking about that before we started recording. Like the number one question we get into Photofocus.
Let's see. Should we just add a question?
Sure.
Or just save it?
Because we're going to be talking about this question more often than not, just in general. But I said it was a rite of passage.
Yeah, I was. Do you want to say it? Do you want to make the question?
Sure.
Pamela from Utah asks.
Hey, I got my camera from Costco in one of those kits, and I'm trying to take pictures of my kids, and my pictures look horrible. What do I do?
Yep, I consider that, and should I shoot raw, the main 2 Q&A questions that we get. Yeah. And they're good. They're good questions without any clear, because the definition of a good question means that there's no clear answer. It's like a discussion rather than an answer, right?
Yeah.
But let's see. Since you asked the question, I'll start. I would say set it on aperture priority would be my first thing. And assuming you know what that is, because
And I would say, yeah, if you don't know what that is, set it for auto and look at the settings and then switch to manual and match those settings.
Ooh, good one. Yeah. Is because if you're, the aperture controls most of the style of the photo. And it's the blur, what's in focus and how much is in focus and blurry background and things like that. So if I set it to aperture priority and I'm just walking around, like my SLR camera, the mirrorless ones you have to turn off because they use more battery. But a regular DSLR, you can leave it on all the time. So when I'm just walking around, I usually have my cameras on and it's on aperture priority. And so I can just, with one dial, zoom the dial where I want it for the type of photo I want to get. And that handles most of it. And the idea is that the other settings are chosen by the camera and your aperture is the only thing that's set by you.
My next advice is to ditch the kit lens and at least to buy what we call a nifty 50. Go buy a 50 millimeter of whatever brand that is. And it's usually around $100 because that lens is going to be far superior than the lens you bought with the kit.
Mm-hmm. And the kit lenses are usually zoomed something like a 50 to 100, something in that range.
Yeah,
right?
and it doesn't have, you're not going to get the f-stop that's really going to give you that, blurred background. It's very light. It's very plasticky. Except if you buy a Fuji kit lens, that Fuji comes out with the best kit lens in the market, hands down.
Oh, I learned something. That's a good tip.
Yeah.
Why? Do you pay? I mean, is it like more? Is it more expensive as well, or is it just?
When they put in their kit lens, their 18 to 55 millimeter kit lens, it is a beautiful, beautiful lens. I don't know what they do or why, but if you have a Fuji with a kit lens, use that lens for everything. That lens is amazing.
And 18 to 55 sounds, maybe it's been too long since I've looked at kits, but 18 to 55 sounds more useful. So if you get a kit lens and it's not that great quality, but you do get the zoom, you want the zoom to be helpful, helpful different options of zoom. So 18 to 55 has something wide enough that you really can have a wide angle, or the 50, and the 50 is usually considered the standard. So something wider is wide and something longer is telephoto, right? That's very arguable. It's very arguable, but
generally when you're buying those kits, you're not on a full frame camera, you're on a crop sensor. So 50-55 distance is a really good 85, which means you're going to get, a decent portrait. I like taking my portraits on really long lenses, but when you're starting out, that's a really great, focus length to start out at.
And those nifty 50s can usually be like a 1.8 lens, so that you get that more. You can have more blurriness if you want it. Yeah, definitely
nifty 50. If you're going to buy a lens, your very first lens ever, buy the nifty 50.
Yeah.
It doesn't break your bank, and it really opens you up into the world of lenses that actually look and do really well.
Yeah. I remember learning about that. There's something about just the physics of making a lens where it just doesn't take that much, so that you can get a really good quality one at a low price, where if you get a 24 millimeter or something, there's so many, now I'm just going to make stuff up, but it's many, many layers and many steps and many extra creative ways to make the lens to be good. It takes a lot more to make it good. So the 50 is cheap because it just doesn't take that much. So don't mistake the cheapness for being no good, because those nifty 50s are really good. And they're so small, you can just leave them on all the time. It's basically like a lens cap. I mean, it's not that small, but it's small enough that it doesn't get in the way. Just leave it on.
I paid my rent for almost 2 years with my nifty 50. Because that's all I could afford. I was doing a lot of event work and things like that. And until one day I'm at a bar and someone next to me ran into me with a beer, and my nifty 50 finally gave up the ghost. It's still on my mantle though, because it did pay my rent for so long.
And it was only about $100 loss in that bar, compared to say $2,000 for some of those Holy Trinity lenses of the full frame SLRs anywhere, like in the $2,000 range. So
that $100 investment obviously paid a lot of bills for 2 years.
Well, that was a good standard question. The Nifty 50, I'm going to add into the standard Q&A questions. Let's finish off with Brian Rim in Bethesda, one of my favorite cities to say, Bethesda, Maryland.
My family's from there.
No, never been. I just like saying it. He says, I like this question. We saved it for last. How do you get better at ballparking? In quotes, how do you get better at ballparking camera settings before you take a test shot? I usually find myself floundering for a couple of shots before I get dialed in. And Brian, me too, man.
I think that is every photographer. I think that's why we do it. We do flounder to figure out, okay, what's the lighting look like? What environment am I in? And we are floundering and playing with our settings to get that right. I think that's just part of the job. And I mean, there's a few times where I can look out and know exactly what settings I need to set, but I've been doing photography for 15 years now.
Well, I was going to say, Pamela, you claim to come from film days. But, so when, in film days, you had to get it right and you didn't find out until you had done your darkroom work, right? If you got it right or not.
Too. We use our light meters, and on sets we use our light meters.
And we still do. Pamela and Brian have light meters. So yeah, Brian, we all do that, and we have light meters built into the camera, and I recommend leaving it mostly on spot meter. If you want to be really deliberate and make your decision about how you're gonna what setting you're going to choose, do it based on the spot meter.
Yeah.
Because you can just be much more deliberate about it. So like for me, I do a lot of interiors. I was just doing, my area is 360s. And so I have to figure out the exposure all the way around, not just in one area. So I go around and spot meter and look at all different areas, find out where the brightest parts are, where the darkest parts are. In a 360 situation, you want to capture it all. So my decision is to find exactly, like the bright area is a 1,000th of a second maybe, and the darkest area is say at a second. And I want to capture all that. So again, I like that word deliberate, I figure out exactly how to do a bracketing setup so that it captures the whole thing. So if you're shooting something creative and you're not using any lighting, then you might want to spot meter the areas so that you can decide which area is getting the setting for your camera, which one you're going to focus on. And you can get handheld meters that some of them you can even look through, so they act just like your camera light meter. So it's like the light coming back. But you get those incidence light meter that has the little white ball on it, and that'll measure what's falling on the light, the ball. So there are a lot of ways to do that. And at the same time, even though I said, hey, I'm always messing around like that too, but at some point you get to know your area, your camera, you might just get good at just guessing. And that's very legit. You just sort of know.
Yeah. And Brian, the floundering, don't stress over it, because that is part of who we are as photographers. As we figure out the shot, most of us aren't going to know it right away. That's part of the process. Yeah.
I always am happy to check my shots, the chimping, right? Looking at the screen after you take a shot. And also, if you know how to use the histogram, that's a good way to really quickly see if anything is, depending on your situation. Like I'll use it to see if any highlights are burned out, or or the other side, if any, starting to lose my words now, any of the dark areas are lost. So I'll use a histogram also to see if I hit it right. And so we make fun of ourselves for chimping, right? You look see if you got it right. But I can do that really quickly with the histogram as the review. So I would recommend that too. And like Pamela says, don't stress about it. It is what it is, and you'll get better at it. You just get to know the equipment. You just start to know what's the Sunny 16? I haven't said this in years.
Oh,
The sunny 16 rule, where if you're outside in typical daylight, you can go
100,
ISO 100,
ISO 100. Yep.
100 those, and F16. Is that right?
Yeah. Wow. It's just so long. It's so automatic. And I have a huge shoot in the next week outside. We're variable weather, and it's just, but yeah, I know it's like ISO 100, F16, and then.
Yeah. I just punched it up. Yeah. I think that's right. Yep. F16. Okay. I knew the 16 had to come in. Like, this has been so long since I've said that, but at any rate, there is that. You can even look it up for yourself, of course. That's a good way just to have a place to start from and make a few mistakes and dial it in from there. And I think that's professional, amateur, doesn't matter. That's something that's going to happen. And just keep doing it. Just keep doing it. I was thinking the other day, I was able to, like in that kind of bracketing situation I was just mentioning, I was able to just make quick adjustments if I walked into, because I was shooting a hotel. So when I go from space to space, I could pretty much eyeball the difference. So I was this is going to be less than a stop difference. I'm just going to shoot it the same way, because there's post. There's always actually, we should mention there's a little bit of leeway. There's at least a stop and a half, 2 stops, maybe even more on some cameras, where if you're off on your exposure, you can recover that. So I felt like I was pretty well able to just make adjustments just with a couple quick clicks of the dial to change it by third stop, 2/3 stop, or full stop, and it was fine. So
yeah, and that comes with time. It comes with practice. There's particular building here in Salt Lake that I know if I'm going to shoot in, I actually go into a custom mode for my color correction, because they have brand new LEDs that turns everybody orange. Like, you just get to know with practice and time to figure all this out.
Yeah. Oh, color correction for the next show. Yeah. We've been talking about color correction on some of these kinds of things where there are so many new different answers with different kinds of light coming in, man-made sunlight, and all these different things, and that's always a challenge. So we've been talking about some of those. So if you want to look up color correction and using flash to balance and stuff like that, then look in some past episodes. You probably find that there, or ask new questions and we'll do them again. No problem.
Absolutely. We love questions. So this is great, because it actually, and then now this is selfish for me, but going through these questions, it makes we've been shooting for a while, but it's nice to go back to some of those basics and remind us again what we love as photographers and how we started. And it actually continues to make me better by answering these questions, because my thought process goes back into that. And it's a good reminder.
Well, I've always said since it happened to me, I've been saying the best way to learn is to teach.
Yeah.
And we even had Rick Salmon that we were on last time, and he said, he quoted someone else, and I'm sorry, I forget, but he said, if you want to learn a subject really well, write a book about it.
It's true.
And so when you're explaining something, try to explain something and see how well you know it, because if you don't know it well enough to explain it, it might be time to go back and find out some more. And I use that for myself all the time.
And surprisingly, a lot of us are learner teachers, if that makes sense. Like, that's a learning
Absolutely.
style that's very, it's very popular, but a lot of people don't realize that that's one of their best ways they can learn. And so, try to write it out, try to answer some of these questions as if you're telling somebody else, and you'll be surprised.
Yep. That's been going on for thousands of years in the East, let's call it, where you're always learning and always teaching, and that's exactly how it should be. And I think photography is a perfect example of that. Like I mentioned earlier, I'll be your assistant on something if you're the expert, and we can do the same the other way around. And highly recommended. Well, Pam, let's wrap up. We had a little bit of a long Q&A, but we're here having fun too. Part of the reason we do the show is for us, just so you know. And so Pam, let's wrap up. Tell everyone where they can find you and anything else you want to mention that we didn't hit on.
Absolutely. My Instagram is just Pamela Annberry. So PamelaAnnberry. My website's the same, PamelaAnnBerry.com. I'm actually going to be joining back up with Rhodolite as of June 1st, which will put me on the road in various photo stores around the country. I'll be doing a lot more teaching with continuous lighting. I've got a few drafts written now for Photofocus again, so I'll be back on Photofocus more full time, which I'm excited. But yeah, it's easy. Just my name, Pamela Ann Berry, on social media.
Well, when you have some articles up, we'll have you on and feature you on the roundtable. And I don't know, I'll put some, I have a couple articles that need to go up. So can I feature myself? I don't really know how that's going to work, but we'll see. And let's see, for me, I'm on Instagram at rpepper, and I'm spending a lot of time still with Photomatics company. And in fact, if you have HDR specific questions, you can ask them here or support at hdrsoft.com. That's the best places to find me. ronpepper.com. We all have our vanity websites these days. Just kind of see everything we're doing. All right. Well, good Q&A. Thanks, Pam. We'll see you on a show soon. And once again, everybody, photofocus.com/questions. See you next month.